Good evening. My name is Hugh Knight. I'm the Fechtmeister of the Schlachtschule. Tonight, I've had a request for more ringen videos, more wrestling. And so I thought that we'd take a look at some interesting ideas about resistance to wrestling and how you use balance to control your opponent according to the Fecht book. A lot of people don't realize just how sophisticated the wrestling material in the Fecht book is. Tonight we're going to look at one primary technique that comes to us from the von Danzig armored material. And what von Danzig says in this material is that if you want to learn to wrestle in armor, you have to be able to do techniques on both sides. Now that just seems like common sense, but what he's really talking about is being able to act in what I call the change, and that is your opponent resisting your actions and what you do about it. So first, let's look at the basic technique. We're going to start by looking at the nature of the clinch. So, as we come into the clinch, Master Ott tells us to grab your opponent's bicep in your right hand and the back of his arm in your left hand. That way, when he tries to push in, you can push to stop him and you can control him. So this is the nominal clinch position for wrestling. Von Danzig says you want to control your opponent's balance, and if he's too centered in balance, that's hard to do. So one of the things he talks about is moving your opponent until you get him to step. Now I have him committed to his position. So now I'm going to do a technique we call the Hintertritt, or the step behind. This is probably the most common grappling technique in all of German martial arts, and you see it in every combat form, not just in ringen by itself. The first thing I have to do is to break my opponent's ability to resist my hands. All right? To do that, I'm going to use a Mortstöße, a strike. This is his weak position. This one is strong. If I try and push this way on here, but if I go underneath, I can strike him. So I'm going to strike him here, and as I do that, I'm going to start pushing this hand around and down to clear my way in. Then I'm going to step behind his left leg with my right leg and use both hands to sweep him back and down. Let's look at that again. Down he goes. That's the Hintertritt, the tread behind. Now what's interesting is that when Master von Danzig talks about going behind your opponent, he's really talking about ways to resist your opponent's resistance to the change. So if, for example, I try and push him backwards and he resists me, and I get in here and I start to try and push him back and he won't go, the master says to trap his knees between both your feet. Now it doesn't say which way he's resisting, but if he tries to resist backwards, he's just going to fall down instantly. So he must, by definition, mean he's resisting forward. What he says to do is to put this hand up behind his neck. In armor, I'd grab the back of his breastplate or helmet if I could. And to put this hand on his throat and to trap his leg between mine. Now this may look awkward, but it's amazing how effective it is at overcoming your opponent's resistance. So let's look at that one again. So get him in position. I strike him. I go to resist, to throw him, but he's too strong and he resists me. So I trap him and throw him down. Then he says, when he's specifically talking about following after your opponent and doing it on both sides, he says if you go to apply the technique and your opponent steps back, what he's talking about is, I said it's hard to resist backwards. Well, there is one way to do it, and that's if you walk backwards, if you step back, so I can't trip your leg any longer. So that's what's going to happen this time, and I have to be able to change and act to the other side to continue the throw. So as I come in to sweep, Joe's going to step out of it, and then I simply have to change sides and attack him. This is really an example of the principle of the Nachreisen, or the following after, just as we see it, the longsword and with all the other forms. You have to remember that the root principles of Master Lichtenauer's art apply to all forms, not just to the one that we specifically learn about. Now when I do that, if I try and apply that action from the change backward, and now he resists me forward, I can again switch and use the knee trap on that side. All right, so let's look at that action from the change backwards. and down he goes. Okay? So that's actions from the change. And this has tremendous applications. Okay? We can use it in lots of different situations. Let us say, for example, that I go to apply a straight arm bar to Joe here. So I pull him, he's got that leg forward, and I think, all right, I'm going to apply a straight arm bar, take him to the ground. But he resists me. He's fighting me. And I know that we are taught, albeit in the longsword material, to respond to strength with weakness and weakness with strength. So I'm not going to fight him. Instead, I'm going to convert this arm bar into a figure 4, and down he goes. Conversely, if I tried to apply a figure 4 in the first place, and he resisted me forward, then I just convert it to a straight arm bar. So as you see, I'm taking the principles of the art and applying them to wrestling. And I'm not just making it up, I'm taking the text the masters give us to know how to do them. Thank you very much.